Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I'm Michelle Collegian. I'm president of the Armenian Museum of America. And on behalf of our board and the trustees, Board of Trustees and the National Association for Armenian Studies and Research, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you here this evening for what promises to be a very enlightening and thought-provoking lecture by Professor Taner Akçam. We are extremely honored to be hosting tonight's talk and especially proud that Professor Akçam will be sharing his latest findings here at the Armenian Museum, which houses an extraordinary assemblage of objects of our rich history and culture. Given the topic of tonight's talk, I thought it would be fitting to read an excerpt from Ambassador John Evans' recent book, Truth Held Hostage. As many of you may already know, Ambassador Evans was dismissed from his post and forced into early retirement after dissenting from the stated policy of the Bush administration and previous administrations on the issue of Armenian genocide. To quote Ambassador Evans, "People have asked me at what exact point I decided to employ the word genocide when speaking to the Armenian American and university audiences during my February 2005 trip. I did not use the word in my appearances in New York at the Archdiocese or in New Jersey where I visited the Hovnanian School. It was directly after visiting the Armenian Museum in Watertown, Massachusetts, which boasts a small but superb permanent exhibit on Armenian history and culture, including the genocide, that I first uttered the word genocide publicly," end quote. So I know we're very proud of that, and I wanted to share that with you, and I thought it was very fitting for tonight's program. But I also want to say, on a personal note, how very honored I am that Taner is here tonight. This has been something that I have wanted for a long time, and I know we've all wanted to have him here. So I welcome you, Taner, and thank you for all that you do. And at this time, I would like to introduce you to Mark Mumigonian, the Director of Academic Affairs with the National Association for Armenian Studies and Research, who will continue the program. Thank you.
Very happy to be here tonight representing NAASR and to speak on behalf of local organizations in introducing tonight's program. And I want to mention that next Thursday night here at the museum, we will be welcoming Behaeddin Shakir, who will present her father, Yerevan Alexanyan's memoir, Forced into Genocide, Memoirs of an Armenian Soldier in the Ottoman Turkish Army, recently published by Transaction Publishers. And this program is co-sponsored by the museum, by NAASR, by the Armenian Assembly of America, the Armenian Cultural Foundation, the Armenian General Benevolent Union of New England, and Project Save Armenian Photograph Archives. So we hope you can be here again next week for a very interesting program. Of this book, one expert has said, quote, "It is usually stated that the Armenians who were conscripted into military service were exterminated first, but this causes us to forget the story of the hundreds of Armenians like Yerevan Alexanyan who served in the Ottoman army and fought until the end, during a period when their close friends, relatives, family members were exterminated. Reading about Yerevan's story is an inescapable part of understanding another kind of suffering, the suffering of survivors." This expert's name, not coincidentally, is Taner Akçam, which brings us to tonight. I always think that when people about whom we say this person needs no introduction may be the people who most need an introduction because they become so familiar to us, and perhaps their achievements and special qualities have therefore become invisible to us. So when I say that Taner Akçam is someone who needs no introduction, this is what I mean. After several years as a visiting professor at the University of Michigan and the University of Minnesota since 2008, he has held the Robert Aram and Marian Kalustian and Stephen and Marian Rugar Chair in Armenian Genocide Studies at Clark University. And throughout those years, it's been my pleasure and my honor in my capacity at NAASR to collaborate with Taner on many lectures and several major conferences, with more planned for the future, and to witness at close range his enormous contributions to the transformation of the scholarship on the Armenian Genocide. Since the early 2000s, he has written or co-written the major works From Empire to Republic, Turkish Nationalism and the Armenian Genocide, A Shameful Act, the Armenian Genocide and the Question of Turkish Responsibility, Judgment at Istanbul, the Armenian Genocide Trials, with Behaeddin Shakir, The Young Turks' Crime Against Humanity, the Armenian Genocide and Ethnic Cleansing in the Ottoman Empire, and The Spirit of the Laws, the Plunder of Wealth in the Armenian Genocide, with Umid Kur. These works have helped reshape the discourse around the Armenian Genocide from something that has to be endlessly proved and reproved to a well-established history with a robust scholarship that can tackle more sophisticated questions than was it or wasn't it. His most recent book, in Turkish, the title of which translates as Naim Efendi's memoir and the Talat Pasha telegrams, the Krikor-Gergerian archive, will be coming in English in the not-too-distant future, right? And I'm proud that NAASR has provided funding for Taner's Gergerian archive project, which is yielding both new discoveries as well as, just as importantly, confirmations of things that have long been talked about and discussed. Last fall, we got to enjoy the first fruit of this project, the lecture on the 9-bay Armandonian materials. Tonight, we get another helping. We got a sneak preview in the recent article in the New York Times, which generated considerable and well-deserved attention. The same day that the New York Times article appeared, Taner was interviewed on NPR and uttered these words about the Turkish government's denial. Quote, "It is over now. There is no way to escape." When my son heard that, he said, "You know, that's exactly what he sounds like when he plays backgammon." Which is true. And this doesn't mean he takes his research as lightly as playing backgammon. It means he takes backgammon as seriously as his research. So we can be grateful that he seems to keep rolling double sixes. So Taner, let us hear what you have to say.
And thanks to Alma and NAASR for organizing this event, and thank you all for coming today. I thought you might have heard and read enough about the Sherlock Holmes and his discoveries, and would prefer to hear the story behind the discoveries and more on Sherlock Holmes' story. So today I reveal the Sherlock Holmes entire findings. So, and I will promise you there will be nothing from the last October that I spoke at the church, so you can be secure about that. We actually owe everything, literally everything, to this individual, Father Krikor Gergerian, who dedicated his life to collect documents and materials related to the Armenian Genocide and created an extensive and very rich archive on Armenian history and genocide. I will give you more information about his archive later, but let me briefly tell you more about him and his life. This is some family images I gathered them from his archive. All the information regarding Father Krikor Gergerian's life I received from Dr. Edmund Gergerian, who meticulously preserves Father Krikor's archival holdings. The Father Krikor Gergerian, born 1911 in Sepastia, Sivas, Gürün, and which is the province of Sivas, Gürün, province of Sivas. He was the youngest of 16 siblings, 8 boys and 8 girls, only 6 of whom survived the deportation. The other 10 were killed, along with their parents. Krikor personally witnessed the killing of his parents. Together with one of his oldest brothers, he succeeded in reaching Beirut in 1916, where he was taken into an orphanage, and it is there that he spent his childhood years. In the year 1925, he enrolled in the Zimmar Bizamar Catholic monastery, sorry for the pronunciation. And after graduating from Beirut St. Joseph University in the early 1930s, he went to Rome to the Livonian Academy with the intention of continuing his theological education and becoming a monk, an ambition that was fulfilled in 1937 when he earned the right to become a Catholic monk. Before the genocide, Krikor's eldest brother Bedros had gone to Cairo and settled there. After he became a monk, Gergerian settled there himself. During this year, Father Krikor decided to pursue a doctorate on the subject of the Armenian Genocide, but he would never complete it, but the archive. And despite working on it for the rest of his life until 1988, the archive is actually the product of his life's work. So now I'm going to show you some images. The entire talk is actually basically the images. This is his grave, and after his nephew Edward allowed me to see the archive, and after I saw what in this archive, I told him that I want to visit the grave and show my respect to this man, and this is the moment. This is 2015 summer. These are some images from the archive. You see the files and boxes and boxes and boxes. And the whole basement is full with these materials. And when I saw the archive, and I decided there is no other way. We have to scan the entire archive. This is the only way to proceed. I thank the entire project, Krikor Gergerian project. Of course, the project was supported by NAASR, by Gergerian, by Gulbenkian Foundation, and by Jiraiya Nishanyan Foundation, by several other individuals, especially from New York area. I would love to name one individual, Grant Julian. I don't know whether you know him. His tremendous support was also very important. These organizations and individuals supported this Krikor Gergerian project. This is an online project. The aim is to put the entire material on online. It is saved in secrecy enough. Everybody should get access to these materials. And I thank really two individuals during that process. One is Dr. Edmund Gergerian, Krikor Gergerian's nephew, for his meticulous preservation of his uncle's archive after the later death in 1988, and for showing great flexibility and indulgence over the process of transferring the archive to the digital medium. And second important individual, you may not know him, it's very important for me, Berç Panosyan, an Armenian from Istanbul. He scanned and digitized the entire archive. Berç did not simply approach this project as a professional and as a businessman, but also with the emotional investment, one putting their whole heart into this project. And when we started scanning the process, I had no financial support. And his words I never forget. Don't worry about it, we will do it. Whether you get funding or not, this is important. And this is how he did. Today, you will see online, when the project gets online, there are certain documents you can read on scanned version better than the original. So he really spent a lot of time and scanned the entire archive for us. So this is this evening's topic actually. Denial. What is the importance of the Krikor Gergerian's archive? It is a major blow to Turkish denials. Of course, needless to say, they will continue to deny. But in order to make it clear, I have to read these 5 points. This is from a historian from Hawaii, an American historian, passed away 2 years ago. He was a scholar in Chicago University, and he developed 4 points actually, how power those in the power silence the past acts. And I put the number 3 there as my addition, and this is actually this evening's topic. The one is the moment of fact creation. You make your own sources. When you see the Grigor-Gergerian material online, you will see that there are indeed certain documents created by Ottoman government during the genocidal process to deny the genocide. For example, have you ever heard that there is a doctor attest on the Grigor Zohrab's death, that he passed away by a heart attack? It is a doctor report. And have you ever heard that the priest from Urfa was the witness of this doctor report and confirmed and wrote a report saying that yes, Grigor Zohrab passed away by a heart attack? These are official Ottoman documents, and we have these documents in the archive. You will see this is the number 1, the moment of fact creation. This is what you make with the history. And the second, the fact, you assemble this fact and create your archive. This is some of the documents today in Ottoman archive. And the third, of course, the moment of destroying and proving falsity of critical documents. And Gergerian archive is related to the moment of destroying the archive. Turkish government, they think that they destroy the entire archive. These are mainly the military tribunal materials from Istanbul 1919-1922, but it seems that they can keep their archives secret still, destroy the materials, but we have the copies there, and I will show you from these materials. And then other is the proving the falsity of the critical documents. This is the Naim Bey memoir and Taner Pasha's telegrams and so on. This is the topic that I will explain. So at the end, what you do, you create your own sources, you destroy the other critical materials, and then you make a narrative, you develop a narrative. And there are historians, they are in the service and they write for you the narrative, and then this is how you create your history. And this is related with our topic, with the Ottoman materials. 1919-1922, as I mentioned, there were military tribunals in Istanbul, and during these tribunals, the judges, the tribunal itself, and the investigation committee discovered hundreds of materials. And today, we don't know where about these materials. What we know about these materials is this. This is the indictment of main tribunal. This is the indictment against the Union and Progress Party Central Committee members and the government's members. This is the indictment published in Ottoman Official Gazette. This is Vahakin Dadrian's main scholarship. He introduced these materials to us, and he founded genocide studies by publishing these materials. And this is related to Behaeddin Shakir's telegram. This is a quote from a telegram. And this is a copy, also a citation from Mahmud Pasha, who these guys, I will tell you more about that. Telegram. So this is our knowledge. And we just quoted from these indictments, and the answer was, of course, show the origin. This is the denialist main argument. Show the origin. One of the famous guy in that regard, it's very important for us to know, Günter Levy, he published a book in 2004, The Armenian Massacre in Ottoman Turkey, very balanced and objective book on Armenian genocide. And he's a scholar, historian, he's not a biased guy. He only works with the materials, of course, and he wrote the following. No authentic documentary evidence exists to prove the culpability of the central government of Turkey for massacre of 1915-16, because they already hide all the materials. It is safe to say that no such evidence exists for the event 1915-16. And he continues, the most serious problem affecting the probative value of the 1919-20 military court proceedings is the loss of all documentation of these trials. This means that we have none of the original documents, sworn testimony, and depositions on which the courts base their findings and verdicts. The findings of the military tribunals are unsupported by credible evidence. Questionable documents other denying this. So, Günter Levy is an honest scholar. Of course, none of the historians can argue anything if they don't have the original. And if you write this as Günter Levy, what you get is, of course, a medal from the Turkish government. His book was published in 2004. You understand the importance of the issue. 2005, he was invited to Turkey, and he got his medal for his book. And his book, I mean, the argument is very scholarly, actually. I would make the same argument. If I don't have the original, I cannot make the case. But this is the really cynical power relation here. One hides the documents, and the other comes up and say that, oh, you hide it, there is no documents there, so there is no proof for the genocide. This is how it works. But I'm sorry, Krikor Gergerian will change the entire history for us. This is the story. What is the Krikor Gergerian's online archive project? We have in Krikor Gergerian's archive mainly two different categories of materials. One is documents from different archives. Krikor Gergerian collected from three major different archives materials. One is Jerusalem Archive, Jerusalem Armenian Patriarch. We can talk about how the materials ended there. This is the military tribunals materials in Istanbul. And 1919-1922 tribunals records. Second important materials he filmed from Bogos Nubar Library, and they are also Armenian and Ottoman language. And he also traveled German, Austrian, British, and American archives, and he worked throughout his entire life. And he compiled these, and the second category is Gergerian's own files. The pictures that you saw, this was his own files. Most of the documents from the Jerusalem archive, they were in the boxes. This is how he finally worked with these. This is from archive. Krikor Gergerian wrote as Krieger. He used the pseudonym Krieger, and he wrote 4 pages about himself for a possible book that he was planning to publish. His title was, the book's title was Armenocide. He uses the term Armenocide, and this is how he wrote about himself. Let's read. Embarking on a scholarly research career in Rome during the year 1937, Krieger seriously pursued his endeavors for the past quarter of a century. As a native Middle Easterner, he has had the opportunity almost each year to travel to many countries, including Turkey, although he never had access to Turkish archives. However, he met many Turks of all classes and had discussions with them. He traveled to Rome many times, as well as to the most of the large cities in Italy, and so on and so forth. So he's saying that he traveled all of the places and so on, and this is how he introduced himself. This is an important guy, changed Krikor Gergerian's life. Krikor Gergerian met this guy around 1940s. We don't know the exact year. And his name is Kürt, or Nemrut Mustafa Pasha. He was one of the judges of Istanbul Military Tribunal. He had a lot of trouble in Istanbul. He was a member of Kurdish Society for the Rise of Kurdistan. He was a Kurdish guy from Iraq, actually, born, I think, in Baghdad or some places around. And there were several criminal investigations in 1920s, and he escaped 1922 to Cairo, where Krikor Gergerian also lived. And Krikor Gergerian met him, and he told several stories about Istanbul Military Court Tribunal's records. And it was this Mustafa Pasha told Krikor Gergerian that the military tribunal's materials went to Jerusalem because Armenian Patriarch had the access. He said, as a judge, I allowed Armenian Patriarch to get access to the files of the court. They made the copies and they took whatever they wanted, and then they ended up in Jerusalem. Don't travel so much, go to Jerusalem, you can find everything. This is what then Krikor did later. And this is what Krikor Gergerian wrote about Mustafa Pasha. And he at this, you have to read this just on the bottom line. It is Krikor Gergerian's handwriting. Specifically, he had many meetings and long discussions with one of the judges of the Turkish Extraordinary Court Martial trying case of the Armenians. And he says that his discussions with him changed the way of thinking of Krikor Gergerian. So this is how he ended up in Jerusalem and filmed the materials. I'm not the first person discovered this archive. 1983, Armenian Assembly made a complete microfilm of these materials. Theoretically, since 1983, these materials are available for any researcher. It seems that nobody took this issue seriously and nobody took in the materials. It seems so. So this is the collection. So this is a known collection. This is a public secret within Armenian genocide research. And you will see in October 2017, this is the primitive preparations for the archive. This is the first part that we are going to online around, I hope, October 2017. We classified the entire military tribunal's materials based on the cities, as you see, the telegrams or documents related to the cities, and then the individuals, as you see, Fazıl Bey, Krikor Zohrab, Naim Andonion, Vehib Pasha, Yerban Odyan, and so on and so forth, and the topics. This is the material that we classified, and you can have access and get this material in its original form. And this is the extensive index of these materials. I took a screenshot for you to understand. As you see here, these are the folder names, Adana, for example, and the PDF, how many PDF pages, beginning sentences, and the topic, and each name and places that you can meet. These are, you can search extremely on that index and go to the places where these materials are. This was one of the major reasons why nobody could work with these materials, because they were not classified, but now we developed an extensive index for the entire archive in Turkish and in English language. This is from English version. What are the contexts of this archive? Material from Istanbul Tribunal. This is the first important issue. This is the New York Times article. Ciphered documents, ciphered telegrams, sent by Ottoman Interior Ministry or by army commanders, contain orders issued by the central authorities in Istanbul on how to organize and conduct the deportation. Some of these documents include strong incriminatory content and were cited or read during post-war trials conducted in Istanbul between 1919 and 21. And since the originals disappeared, denialists have questioned the authenticity of these citations, and these copies confirm the value of trial evidence. How these documents were collected? In 1918 November in Istanbul, an investigation committee was established. This committee traveled throughout Anatolia and collected the materials from the provinces. This is the number one way. Number two, during the tribunal, first tribunal started 1919 February, court asked regularly Interior Ministry new documents. And Interior Ministry wrote the provinces about these topics, and the telegrams came from these provinces to Interior Ministry, and Interior Ministry sent these to the military tribunal. This is, I will show you some examples. For example, in a letter from Minister of Interior to Court Martial, written on April 2, 1919, it was noted that 42 telegrams were sent to them from Ankara, and they sent these documents to the court. So we have these 42 telegrams in the archive. And Mahmud Pasha and Behaeddin Shakir documents are among these telegrams. This is the discovery that you read in New York Times. This is not mentioned in New York Times article. This is new, and I think most of you will see this first time, this document. This is who is Mahmud Pasha? He is the commander of Turk Army, and he sent a circular on July 24, 1915 to all provinces under the Turk Army control. And pay attention, this is the Interior Ministry's letterhead. It is an official document. The authenticity cannot be really denied. Thank you. And this is the famous, I say it famous because Hakan Dadrian used this all the time in his article. It confirms the originality. This is the signature for this case, that it confirms the originality. What this telegram says, it is evident that in some of the locations where people have been moved out and into the interior regions, the Muslims have been hiding Armenians. It is considered necessary that those who have been hiding and maintaining Armenians in opposition to government's order be hanged in front of their properties and their properties burned to the ground. This shows us one. This means in the villages and in small towns, the Muslims, they were protecting their Armenian neighbors and friends. And this bothered really Ottoman authorities so much so, they compelled to send these circulars to the regions. And later, Mahmud Pasha sent another circular. So this is the interesting version that you can see. As you see, this is an Ottoman document. There are 4 different documents on these pages. There is no Ottoman letterhead, and this is coming from Konya province. As I mentioned, Interior Ministry asks during the trials to the provinces, send some materials which hasn't been compiled yet. And from Konya province, the individual writes these telegrams, each of them, whatever they received. I will show you another example also. And the first is related to Mahmud Pasha, the Third Army commander, in August 1915. You know, during Armenian Genocide, Turkish authorities collected Armenian boys and girls, and they distributed to Muslim families. And when the first order went to the provinces that every Armenian, every Muslim will be hanged in front of their houses who hides Armenians, those Muslims who took Armenian children with the order of Ottoman government get confused. They said, who gave us these children? This is the second order about. It says, those Muslims can still continue to keep these children in their houses if it is given by Ottoman government. But all others who are hiding Armenians against the government's order, they will be hanged in front of their houses. So this is the second order that you can see. This is the Shakir telegrams that the New York Times story. On this telegram, you have to pay attention to 2 different things. One, the Ottoman letterhead. This is important. This shows the originality. And the second, these 4-digit Arabic numbers there. This is the code. This is how this telegram was coded and sent to regions. And this is then decoded on top of each telegram, because we don't have the key book. We cannot read these. They already decoded 1919. This is how we know these 4-digit, what these 4-digit numbers are all about. And this is Behaeddin Shakir's telegram, and comes like first time, and this is the content of the telegram. It is sent by Behaeddin Shakir. Behaeddin Shakir is a name for all of you. He is the chief of the special organization, Teşkilat-ı Mahsusat, and he was in Erzurum, and he was sending this telegram from Erzurum to Harpert. And the telegram was saying, are the Armenians being dispatched for their being liquidated? Are these troublesome people you say you have expelled and dispersed being exterminated or just deported? Answer explicitly. This is an original document with a letterhead. Dadrian coded, because I coded this telegram several times, because as I showed you, it was in the indictment, but we didn't have the original. So we have the original of this here. And this is number one. The number important discovery, this is the Sherlock Holmes history, is related to his coding system. I looked and searched Ottoman archive, the materials that I have in my hand. I will show you some examples. There are materials in Ottoman archive exactly sent to Istanbul with these codings. And I compare both with the words that we have in Behaeddin Shakir's telegram. So I looked the word Armenian, dispatched, troublesome, people, each word I checked in the Ottoman archive. Only for the months June, July 1915, the same period, the word send-off reported 4998. It is the code in Behaeddin Shakir's telegram. And I discovered in 18 different Ottoman telegrams 4889 as coding for deported. And it is the same for Sir, Bey, the word only, brother, Armenian, from there, sending off, or the first personal possessive suffix, and the plural endings. These are the coding system that is used in Behaeddin Shakir's telegram, and I found exactly the same coding system in the Ottoman archive. How? Here, one example. The word Armenian, 8519. This is the Armenian in a plural. This is the plural ending also. This is the Armenian. 8519 is the coding. And here is 8519. This is an original Ottoman document from the Ottoman archive. So today you can get this document from Ottoman archive. Same coding system. Why, you may ask, why only one word for Armenians? It's I will leave this to the question and answer. It's a very fascinating issue. We discovered that too. Second, deported, 4889. This is again Behaeddin Shakir's telegram, 4889. And here we have the same in the Ottoman materials. These are again telegrams sent from provinces to Istanbul, and because of paper scarcity and some other reasons, officers in Istanbul, they decoded all these telegrams on the numbers, on top of the numbers. This is how we read these materials. So the same coding system. This is the word bey. This is the word only or alone. And this is the word from there. And this is the word for brother, kardeş. And this is the personal possessive suffix im or im code. And this is the plural ending. So as you see, we have really several documents from the Ottoman archive with the same coding system. So put yourself in the shoes of Turkish government. How would you answer regarding the show the original argument? It's tough. They can only argue about the content of the materials. And they will maybe blame the individuals, saying that, oh, it was his own issue or whatsoever. And this is the important part. So this is one part. Second important discovery from the Krikor-Gergerian archive. There are telegrams in the archive, Krikor-Gergerian's archive. You can find the same archive in the Ottoman archive. I discovered around 60 of these telegrams. This is important because it shows the authenticity of Krikor-Gergerian's archive. These are not killings orders. These are not incriminatory documents. These are how, for example, this is a telegram related to confiscation of Armenian properties. Regular deportation orders. You find exactly the same in the Ottoman archive. And this is, as I mentioned you, from Konya, that the governors sending the copies of the telegram that they received during the genocide period. Here, governor of Konya, this is the letterhead, he put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 telegrams saying that we received these 5 telegrams. He sent more than 5, but I took only one copy. 5 telegrams from Istanbul regarding the deportation. And this is official trial material. And here I put only 4 of them. I have all of them. 10 from Konya province, they sent around 10 telegrams, and we had exact same telegram in the Ottoman archive. Exact same telegram. I put for you the 4 of them. This is another important information for us that shows the authenticity of Grigor-Gergerian. This is, as you see here, court records. This is the clerk, either direct the court material or Armenian Patriarch took copies of it. And document on the left is related to a commander of the 5th division in Kayseri, and he sent a telegram to Ankara on August 5th. And he says in this telegram, based on the telegrams of the director of the Boğazlayan regional branch of military, hereby I inform you, Shahabattin informs the Ankara, that until now, 3,066 Armenians from the town Boğazlayan and its surrounding villages have been killed by the Boğazlayan county executive, by Kemal Bey, who was hanged later. And this is the telegram. And here is telegram from Ottoman archive. And this is a telegram sent by Taner Pasha to Ankara. Be careful with the date. 5 August 1915, and Talat's answer is 9 August 1915. Talat sends to Ankara and says that we heard from the 15th division of Kayseri that 1,060 Armenians from the town of Boğazlayan and surrounding villages have been killed by the Boğazlayan county executive. Inform us about the details. The numbers differs. Then you will say, oh, this is the forgery. You can play with it. It's very obvious that same event, same topic, there is a mistake, and you can always mix when you read 1 and 6 in Arabic. It is very understandable. So this shows other way of authenticity of Grigor-Gergerian. Other materials, I go very fast so that we can start with question and answer period. Court proceeding, testimonies and interrogations. These are also among the materials. And some of these materials are handwritten copies, either in Ottoman documents, Ottoman Turkish, or some of them in Armenian also. We know that during trial, some Armenian court clerks took handwritten copies of the original materials. And these are materials like that. Copies of, for example, 3 telegrams on the right side, or on your left side. And on your right side, it is the testimony of the mayor of Mardin on Salih Zeki, who was the killer in Derzor, who was responsible of killing around 200,000 Armenians in 1916 summer. And this is a testimony against him, and based on this testimony also Salih Zeki were sentenced to death in his absentia. This is the interrogation of Kemal. As you see, there is some Armenian handwritings there also, and Yozgat trial, and these are the questions on the right, your right side, and on the left side, his answers to these questions. This is the other court materials, interrogation of the Kemal. And another very important discovery of the Grigor-Gergerian archive. The story is following. Especially because of the confiscation of Armenian properties, or plunder of Armenian properties, Ottoman government compelled to send investigation committees to the regions, 1915 September, October months. We knew that these commissions sent reports from the regions, but originals are gone. We didn't know where about these materials. They are all in Krikor Gergerian's archive, and mainly from Adana, from Aleppo, from Diyarbakir, from Derzor, Marash, Damascus. Altogether, 8 different reports from regions on the plundering of Armenian properties, especially from Aleppo and from Diyarbakir on the killings also. Government reports on how the deportation and killing was on. This is the report from Adana. And this is, as you see, the signatures of the commission members. This is the commission report from Diyarbakir, just for examples for you. Then the other important part, this was my talk when NAASR organized the event 2016 October on the Naim Bey's telegrams, and this is the memoir. I'm not going to talk about it. And these are, you never seen, these are the films that Krikor Gergerian made in Paris, Bogos Nubar Library. These are gone. We don't know where about these documents. Even in Paris, we don't have the Naim Bey's handwritings. We don't know where it is. It's gone. This is the importance of the Krikor Gergerian archive. He went there, filmed his handwritten Naim Bey's memoir, and he also filmed these telegrams. This is how we know the originals. And this is based on his memoir, this is the first book that I published. I hope English will come soon, 2018. And let's finish with the end quote with Krikor Gergerian himself. He says, this is the closing paragraph of his writing about himself. Krieger has done the young academic community. I think it's really great what he wrote about himself. And, you know, it is what I had to say today. Look, has done the young academic community in particular a splendid service. At long last, there is factual foundation written in a language easy to read, because he translated all these in English, in Armenian, and so on, that our students can utilize as primary reference sources from which they can continue to do research projects concerning the Armenians and their plight. For too long, these materials has laid obscurity hidden in the furthest dust-blinding recesses of the archives. He's writing this in 1980s. So let me finish with one important personal note. The renowned sociologist, German Jewish sociologist Norbert Elias, upon receiving the Adorno Prize in 1977 in Germany, said during his acceptance speech that he carries a torch lit before him, and there will be others after him to carry it into the future. Using Elias' analogy, I would say that the torch in the field of Armenian genocide research was lit by Father Krikor Gergerian and carried out by Richard Hovhannissian and especially by Wahatkan Dadrian. I consider Dadrian as my mentor, as founder of our field. I took over the torch from those pioneers. One of my ultimate desires is to see young scholars carry on this torch that Gergerian lit and Dadrian and Richard Hovhannissian have carried so far. If I have been successful in my research, we have to really never forget, I owe this to our pioneers. This success also shows the importance of genocide research to please support young generations' education and especially on Armenian genocide research. Thank you for listening. So floor is open. If you have questions,
Please stand up and shout.
Should I go there?
Yes, Ruth.
A question about copies. Could you explain how you made copies, how Krikor Gagarian made copies, or the Turks sent copies to Istanbul? What is a copy mean back then?
copy means then, if it is an Ottoman officials, there are several ways of it. One is simple, write them on a simple piece of paper.
Copy them?
Copy, writing,
By
looking
hand.
there and copying there. Some of these materials, handwritten copies from other copies. Just an example, you saw this Mahmud Pasha's telegram with Ottoman letterhead. We have in the archive around 10 copies from different provinces because they handwritten copied these materials. And they ended up in Armenian Patriarch. Either they took these copies from the material or they copied also because it's their right, the clerk copied, develop one copy for Armenian Patriarchate, and Patriarchate sent these materials to Marseille. From Marseille it went to Manchester, and from Manchester it ended up Jerusalem. For Krikor Gagarian, he filmed. We have the invoices in the archive. In Jerusalem, he hired a company and he paid money and he filmed all these materials.
So that was before carbon paper.
Yes.
Yes.
With regards to the Jerusalem archives, you said that a lot of the stuff he got from the Jerusalem archives. Do we know what else is in there? And has anyone gone through and categorically looked at the Jerusalem archives to see what else there? Because as I understood, half of the archives ended up in the Nubarian library and the other half ended up in Jerusalem. So I know the Nubarian stuff has been well cataloged. What about the Jerusalem archives?
Military tribunals materials ended up only in Jerusalem, nowhere else. There are some copies in Nubar library also, but mainly it is the Jerusalem. And 1974, Vahakın Dadrian went there and copied some materials. This is how he developed his scholarship. And we used his materials extensively. According to Shirair Liberidian, when he was director of Zorian Institute, he went also early 1980s to Jerusalem archive and microfilmed the entire archive. And he says he left one copy in Zorian Institute, another copy in IRF archive. We have been searching over years. We don't know where these materials are. And Jerusalem archive or the Patriarch do not allow scholars to enter and search there. We don't know whether they are catalogued. We don't know the situation of these materials. They have their own reasons. I don't know what they are. I don't want to speculate about it. I really tried very hard to get access to this archive. After I had this Krikor Gagarian archive, I asked them, I want to compare, because some of them are not readable, some films. And I only wanted to compare and see the originals. They didn't allow me to look into the archive. So we don't know where about these materials. This is the importance of Krikor Gagarian.
Is this material digitized? Is it available to the public?
They are all digitized. There are now maybe 20 different copies in all
possible places in the world. Just an example, including the Armenian Museum in Yerevan, Genocide Museum in Yerevan. It is saved in all places, and I'm in negotiation with Edmund Gergerian for the hard copies. I hope, let's pray, that he decides for Boston. And these materials will be available for public. You can download whatever you want from this archive with an extensive index, search index, and I hope in October 2017. We are working on it.
Translated?
This is a very important question. Gergerian was an incredible man. You know how many copies he made of these materials? He was so scared that the Turks would come and burn the materials or steal some materials. He copied and copied the same Ottoman material. He had written in Armenian letters but Ottoman Turkish. He translated into Armenian and he transcribed into modern Turkish. So in his archive you can find 3 different versions of the Ottoman materials. These Ottoman materials that we have there, around 800 pages, transcription is done. There is a professional team in Turkey, they finished this transcription. We haven't decided yet how many of these transcriptions should be put on online. Because we want to publish, I want to be egoistic in the sense, I want my students publish first something from this archive before anybody else uses it.
Has Gunter Louis had any response or reaction to this? Does he know anything about it?
Not yet.
What was the question?
Yeah, could you repeat the question?
The question was whether Gunter Louis had made any response to this, and I'm sure each time the phone doesn't ring, you'll know that it's him.
He actually called me 2003 when he was writing his book. I understood that he is leaving afterwards, after he published his book. I'm very curious what he's going to say, because his main argument is show me the original. So here is the original. I don't know what he's going to do.
That guy sold his soul Mr. Akçam, you said that Mustafa Pasha, the judge in the military tribunal,
Yes.
started 1919 to 1920. He personally let Gergerian take some of the documents, right? I thought those military tribunals were under the jurisdiction of British, French, and other powers in Istanbul. Those court proceedings, there were no European powers?
No, this was a Turkish court, Ottoman Turkish court, and British authorities had no jurisdiction on it, and it was established based on Ottoman law, and he was the proceeding judge, and he allowed Armenian Patriarch to copy the materials. And he didn't give any material to Gergerian himself.
So European governments don't have.
Some of the materials you can find in, of course, British Archive if somebody copied, or let me put in a very precise way. Among these materials, there are records about individuals, defendants in Istanbul Tribunal. An Armenian Patriarchate translated all these materials into English, and in English files you can find the English translation of some of these materials. Very bad translation, but it's available in English also, some of these materials. For example, on Mahmud Pasha, you can read some materials. Because Armenian Patriarchate translated this, gave to the British, because British promised to try this individual, which they never done. And some of these materials were published by our dear lawyer in California. What, Jess? Yeah. He published as Malta Tribunal. This is the Malta document is known. So But we will have its entirety first time now, this material is available.
Yes. What advice do you have for the young genocide scholar who's...
I'm sorry?
What advice do you have for the young genocide scholar who's interested in this material?
Common sense. One important thing, never lose your integrity and honesty. This is the only issue. Approach to each document critically. Don't make any distinction between any documents. The only critical issue is your brain, and approach to every material with the same distance. And never lose your integrity and honesty, whether it's in favor of Turks or Armenians and so on. Don't look from that perspective. This is the important part.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be checking during the April 24th ceremonies in Istanbul. The president had an apology to the Armenians. Can you make any comments about it?
Of course. You all know that the Turkish denial discourse has shifted. They still deny the Armenian genocide, but they put a human touch on it. They don't say the old version, you know, nothing happened. If something happened, it's Armenians' fault. And Armenians were the prisoners, they stepped back our nation, and so on. Today's denialism, oh, we all suffered. We have to have a just memory. We have to put Muslims and Armenian suffering on the same level. And this is the reason, this started actually after Hrant Dink's assassination. And last 3 years, they now give a press release on April 24 and express their sorry. But what should I say? It's the new version of Turkish denialism.
Yes.
There are books written about Kemal Ataturk, supposedly the father of modern Turkey. Have you discovered anything in your experience or research to come up with a nice presentation on things that may not have been brought out in the past about this gentleman?
No, not about Mustafa Kemal in that archive, but I can tell you there are several articles written by Krikor Gergerian on Nemrut Mustafa Pasha, the judge, and Mustafa Kemal Pasha. Because in early scholarship, in early Armenian scholarship, people mix these two individuals. They both Kemal Pasha, they both Mustafa Kemal, and then people thought the founder of Turkish Republic was actually the good judge in Istanbul tribunals, and there has been several books and articles written on that topic, and Gergerian wrote several articles saying that don't do that, these are two different individuals. So in that archive there is nothing on Mustafa Kemal, the founder of Turkish Republic.
Yes.
Once these archives go live, do you think the Turkish government will allow its people to have access to them?
They can ban, but you know, in the internet age, they cannot stop this process. And I don't think that they will do that. My sense is their standard policy is ignoring. They will continue to ignore and they will never make any comment on it. And when time comes, they will even use these as a sign how democratic they became. You see, we even allow these archives. In old days, we were prisoners. Our position was really kind of a threat to nation and so on. Now today, they changed the discourse, your position and our position. This is their discourse. They are very polite. So now we have both sides' stories. And they like the CNN news coverages. You know, we have to listen both sides. So we have to listen Armenians and the Turks, and both sides' stories are legitimate stories. This is Mahmud Bashar's article on denialism.
You just ruined it.
I understand the copies were made by hand. What about the letterhead?
signature or the seal or the stamp. How was that copied? And would that cast a doubt on the originality?
I mean, let's take this Behaeddin Shakir telegram. Never mind. I have to.
Let's go down the side.
Yeah? This is I cannot find it. Or Mahmud Kamil, you can find the Mahmud Kamil, it's a better example. Go to the slideshow, it's easier for us.
There we go.
Is it somewhere here?
Slideshow.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Now, this telegram originally was sent from Erzurum to Harper. This is not what Behaeddin Shakir wrote. This is Behaeddin Shakir's telegram. The possibility is it came to Istanbul from Harper because Interior Minister asked the regional provinces, sent the documents. They sent these documents, and the documents arrived in Istanbul. A clerk in the Interior Minister, because he's from a... This is related to the inspection part of the Interior Ministry. They took the letterhead and they copied what they got from Harper. And they put the coding system also. Probably this is produced by Interior Ministry in Istanbul as a copy of a telegram coming from Harper. We don't have the piece that arrived from Harper. We don't have it.
Yes. What was the question? You said you're going to defer it to the Q&A about finding the codes that was designated for Armenians.
Oh, yes. With the... Here is the complicated story. Even though this is the... I have to talk in the microphone maybe. This is really Sherlock Holmes' story. You see these 4-digit numbers. You think that in 4-digit numbers telegram we have the one coding system. No. We discovered that there are 9 different coding systems. And it is recorded in the beginning of each record. It says according to number 5. These are the 4-digit numbers coded according to number 5 coding system. So, the entire other 4-digit numbers, if they are coded according to number 2, number 3, number 4, total different numbers. The interesting part with the word Armenia is Armenians, 8519, they sometimes, because they use so many times the same word, in order to trick maybe somebody who might get access to this, they switch the places of the numbers. Instead of 8519, they used 1985 or 5891. Several documents like this. We discovered only 2 with 8519. All others, they played around with 8519. They changed their sequences. Because after a while you get used to it. You don't care whether 8 at the beginning or at the end. When you read, then you read automatically. Oh, this is Armenian because the same numbers. But in the number 3 coding system, there are totally different numbers on Armenian, for example. They use different numbers. So we will develop an extensive Sherlock Holmes report on these coding systems.
Yes.
I think that the switching of the numbers, can you verify that it's actually the word Ermeni from the context?
Yes, yes, of course. I mean, this is also written, look here, this is exactly how it's written in Arabic. They wrote there as Armeni. So we have to just read. This is the only issue that we do. I mean, the entire text, we can write the entire text, of course. It's Ermeni, and in, for example, in Shakir's telegram, it says, Ermenileri yolladınız mı? Did you send the Armenian? In the other sentence, it says something about the Armenians. It's in the sentence, of course.
Maybe I misunderstood, but you said that they used the number 8519 instead of the word Ermeni, correct?
Yes.
Correct. And then sometimes the Swiss number.
Yes.
What I'm trying to understand is that, let's say there's a number, Swiss number instance. Can you verify that the Swiss number means Ermeni from the context of the telegram?
You don't need to look the context. If it is, for example, 1589, on top of it, it's written also Ermeni.
Oh, okay.
These are, I mean, you don't use any key book to decipher all these. This is already deciphered by Ottoman authorities in Istanbul. They already wrote what these four-digit numbers equal. So this is, just look the document, it's enough.
And why would they do that?
This is
It's not too smart.
It makes breaking.
very simple, they can read, and when the telegram comes first time, a clerk writes on top of the words because of the paper scarcity, and then they, of course, make a clean copy of it. They write only the text. You see from Behaeddin Shakir, most of the Ottoman telegrams are written in this form without this coding system. There are so many cipher telegrams in Ottoman archive. There are only text. You don't have the coding system. These are the telegrams with the coding system are new on Ottoman archive. These are mostly telegrams coming from the provinces. All telegrams that we have sent from Istanbul to provinces, we don't have any coding system or coded telegrams. We have only plain text in Istanbul telegrams. This is how they work. This is the bureaucracy. And they make, by the way, not only once, they make the same, several copies of the same document. And if they send to different departments, it's logic. I mean, you copies also here, one for the finance minister, one for the others, and so on and so forth, from the same document. In archive of today, you can find one document on 3 different catalogs, because it is related to the 3 different issues.
I have a question. You have so much material now in the Bulgarian archive, from the Ottoman archive, from other archives. I asked you this question before, so I know what your answer is. But do you have any concern that highlighting one document as the smoking gun distracts from the multitude of documents and the massive evidence?
Not necessarily. I mean, the answer that I gave to Mark was, this is on top of it what we already achieved in Armenian genocide research. There is nobody argues that, oh, this is the document, forget the others. These are really direct, what we call it, direct evidence of extermination. In the importance of the military tribunal's records in Istanbul are that it includes direct evidence of the killings. This is like the Andonian materials. All other scholarship, what we developed on genocide, these are mainly what they call it in the literature, circumstantial evidences. Of course, we already established what happened to Armenia as a genocide. But this is on top of it. This is crème à la crème. That's the thing.
One last question.
Yes, I wanted to ask, when did the coding system start? Did this start during the First World War, or the same kind of coding system had been going on for a long time?
For a long time. But with the beginning of First World War, they made more systematic, and they destroyed and banned the previous coding system, and with 1915 they developed a new coding system. And we don't know how often they changed the coding system. We don't have the key books. This is my main argument regarding the Andonian materials, non-Andonian materials.
So Taner, thank you for the presentation and for the incredible work.
Without asking a question.
I was just curious about, so if the Bulgarian had all this, or retrieved all this information, like why did it take so long for the public?
Could you repeat the question?
Great question. Can you repeat?
Why, if Gagarin assembled all this material over such a long time, why is it taking so long to become aware of the material?
This is an issue that Armenian community should ask. I mean, as I said, let's assume that Gagarin was planning to publish something. This is his material. He never gave it to anybody and so on. You might understand this, but he gave the entire archive 1983 to Armenian Assembly. Since then, it was available for everyone. And it is the same with the Jerusalem archive. And it seems that there is something missing in the Armenian community regarding these materials. And I don't want to speculate. Everybody can find them. No, it's not all.
When I was here from 61 to 63, there was a Vatabed, and he knew how to get in and out. He said, I went in again, I got some information. And I said, I don't want to hear about it, I don't want to hear about it. But they have their way of sneaking in and sneaking out.
Anyhow, so these are the closed archives. And thanks God we have the electronic age and we can scan and make it available. And how to say, never late, never late.
Better late than never.
Never late.